and thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome my guest, Eileen Kim. Hey Eileen, how are you?
Hi Blair, I'm doing super good. How are you?
I'm good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Wow, it came by so fast.
I know. Eileen, you're my first interview of 2023.
I'm honored.
No, but like, y'all, let me tell you. Okay, so like I'm excited to tell you what Eileen does and who she is and more about and she's gonna tell you guys more about herself as well. But so I don't even remember. I think I emailed you like what in October or something.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so like I have a big like, fangirl crush on Eileen. I think I've been following her on Instagram for like maybe a year now. And
Whoa.
I reached out because Eileen, no. Okay. So to be honest, I kind of like doing the podcast. One of
Mhm,
my biggest like obstacles is like the
mhm.
fear of rejection.
Oh, interesting. What? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like even like, so I, with all of my interview people, I've been able to run through like most of like my acquaintances, right?
Mhm.
And then it got to a point where like my friends and acquaintances, I'd reach out to their friends.
Yeah,
And now I'm at a point like over 100 episodes in, I'm
yeah,
like, okay, I have to reach out to people I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
But then I want to, reach out to people that are like awesome too,
yeah.
And so
Well,
like I'm like, okay, I'm just if they say no, it's okay. It's all right. Like
wait, that's crazy that you say that because when I read your email, I was like, this girl sounds like she knows exactly what she's doing.
that's
And it
crazy.
was
No,
like, and
I'm
it's
so
crazy
serious.
too.
So,
Yeah.
but all this to say, guys, so I reached out to Eileen in October and she was so gracious. She sent me an email back and I was like, you could ask
Yeah.
my husband. I was like, oh my God, she emailed me.
I love that.
And then
But I
he
will
was like,
say,
who emailed you? I didn't even tell him. I didn't even tell my
oh,
husband because I was like scared,
he's like, who is this person that you're talking about all of a sudden?
And so like, so anyway, she emailed me back and then we've been playing email tag for a little while because it just got crazy, like I
Yeah.
think with after not just you, like after COVID has kind of ended now,
Yeah.
everyone's just gotten busier. And I started the podcast, Eileen, during COVID. And so
Oh, wow.
people were home, like not busy. And so
Sure.
it worked for me.
Yeah.
But now that people are getting busier, it's like, it's great, people should be
Yeah.
busy. But I was like, oh shoot, like at least she said yes.
Yeah. No, I will say first, your writing was super welcoming. So I already
Mm,
knew like the vibe. It's weird to say that you can tell through writing, but you actually can. So I was like, okay, this girl like is definitely someone I would love to sit down and just like have a conversation with.
uh-huh.
Um, and then not to mention, I went back and like listened to a bunch of your podcast episodes, and I was like, yes, this is so amazing of like a niche because I was like, this is something I would have wished I had when I was younger, you know?
Yes. I
Um,
mean, me too. Me too. Um, yeah, but sorry, we're gonna say more. I didn't mean to cut
no,
you off.
that's it. No, I was just gonna say that I'm so happy we made it happen.
Oh, yes. And okay, like I have some real honest questions for you today because sorry, y'all. So okay, Eileen.
Yeah.
Eileen, what is it that you do for a living?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain it to the best of my ability,
Okay.
but my overarching title is a professional dancer slash choreographer. So that's kind of like an umbrella term for a lot of different areas. So that includes like anything from like choreographing or dancing for artists through music videos or performances. And then I teach a lot of my own workshops locally at studios or even internationally. And then I compete with a crew called GRV. So that's kind of interesting because we build sets and we like perform and go to like world competitions. And then I also direct my own team called Groove. Um, and so that's kind of like the overarching different areas of dance, I would say, more or less. And then I'm also like, I consider myself an entrepreneur. So I do own my own business. It's called Roots Dance Studio. It's located in Koreatown, LA. And then I also started my own online course program. I think the latter half of 2021. So that was like a passion project of mine. I have yet to do more of it, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't know the last part about the online,
Course program.
classes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
courses. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
wanna do those.
Yeah, it's super, I'm thinking of doing one. Well, I've been doing it for advanced dancers. I wanna do also one for beginner
Yes,
dancers, but
beginner dancer.
regardless, yeah, I think it would be super fun to have people that I respect and like, and
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, okay,
Yeah.
like, some background just for you is I grew up as a competitive figure skater.
Oh my
So
gosh, that's so
so,
cool.
like like, if I could do it over again, I
Yeah.
always tell people I'd be a dancer. Like,
Oh,
I love it. I like I mean, I don't dance right now, but if I
yeah,
could, I would, and,
yeah.
so, for me, the whole, like, me fangirling part, I just watch you and other professional dancers, and I'm like, "How do they do that?" And, like, I I think I can do it in my head, but
Yeah. That's where it starts, I guess.
yes, yes, but it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so what does a typical day for you look like then as a professional dancer?
Um, yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because obviously, a lot of being a dancer is kind of just being a freelancer. So a
Mhm.
lot of my days would look completely different depending on what kind of gigs are scheduled for that week. But I guess on my busiest day, obviously just wake up. I often like choose sleep over food. So there are times where I'll just like maybe eat a quick snack as my lunch on my way to maybe a rehearsal.
Mm.
Rehearsals are typically like 3 to 4, even 5 hours long, depending on what it's for.
Nice.
So maybe I'll have like a rehearsal. And then afterwards, I try to squeeze in any of my free time. So being a business owner and also being my own like creative is a very tricky balance.
Mm.
So obviously there's a lot of back end things that we do for the studio as well. So anytime I have free time, I try to squeeze in any of that back end work, which is kind of like just on my laptop, remote stuff. And then after that, our operating hours at this physical studio is usually weekdays like 5 to 11 p.m. So I'll be there. Which side note, I do own the studio with my sister. Her name is
Oh,
Deanie.
okay, yes, I think I
Yeah,
knew this. Yes, yes.
yeah, so we work together. So I don't have to be there every day, but on the days that I would be there, I'll go there at like 5. And then I'll be there to run the space and kind of manage our interns and everything like that.
Mhm.
And then after that, there's actually a lot of days of the week that I have rehearsals at night at starting at like 9 p.m. So even after like maybe running the studio, I'll like drive over to OC and then I'll have rehearsal from like 9 to midnight.
Is that
Um,
typical of dancers, like, just to, like, work through the night?
Very typical, yeah. That's
Mm.
probably why my sleeping schedule is kind of crazy. But yeah, and then to honestly on my busiest day, after all of that, if I have the energy or if I have like a particular deadline for something, I'll probably choreograph something after, like late at night. So
Oh
I'll probably
my
like go to the
gosh.
studio after all my rehearsals are done and then work on my own creative stuff.
That's crazy. That is
But
so
that's if I
insane.
have
I
the
have so many
energy.
questions, but I, like, feel like I don't know where to start.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
um, but I okay, how about this? Can you take me back to the very beginning? Like, when you started
Ooh,
dancing?
yeah. Well, um, I love telling this story, but like I did start dancing as a kid.
Mhm.
Um, I like my mom would take me to like jazz classes. I took like one ballet class and I completely hated it. And so I was like, I'm never doing this ever again. Um, and so I was like I guess just in those environments a lot as a kid, but I don't think that my training was ever actually like legitimate, if I would say. And so I think I found my first studio, it was called Edge Pack out in Hollywood. I found that. And so I started going to take my own classes maybe around like middle school, early high school ish. Um, and so that was kind of just like its slow beginnings. But I would say my very first time really being like serious about it was when I entered college. Um, so I went to UC Riverside for just a year, and I did something called Casa Dance Off, which is like very well known throughout the Asian
Yes.
American community. it's funny, like, looking back on that time because I'm like, I'm embarrassed to say because I was just like this little 18-year-old girl. But I remember just being all in and like really
Mhm.
loving it. And so since then, I joined a team out there, and just it kind of escalated till now.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah,
So did you said you were there for a year is
yeah,
at UC Riverside?
yeah.
Can I ask, is it 'cause you stopped going
Dropped
to
out.
school?
Yeah, I completely. So I don't recommend this to everybody, but I really was like, I'm gonna pursue dance, and then I was like, I'm gonna drop out of school. So that was
You
kind of
can't see my face right now, but it's shock because I mean, it's just like, man, what a risk. I feel like I
yeah,
don't know. I
definitely
don't
a risk.
know. I mean, for me, just my
Yeah,
personality, right?
yeah.
Um, okay, so, like, man, so you were really all in. Like, you're just
Yeah,
not you weren't, like, messing around. You were like, "This is what I wanna do."
for sure. That was exactly what it was. Yeah,
So what
and
happened that
mhm.
first year? You just fell in love with it? Or what is it about dance that you were like, this is what I want, everything?"
Yeah. Well, okay. If I were to take it really back, actually,
Okay.
so after a year of going to Riverside, I took a pause and I moved to Korea.
Okay.
It's weird. I don't like to mention this depending
Oh,
on the
okay.
setting,
Okay.
but today we're going all into my story.
Yes,
So
yes.
I actually was a K-pop trainee in an
Shut
agency.
up.
Yeah, for like a very short time. It was like so short. And I like now that I think about it, I was such a bold little girl because I was like, I'm gonna move to Korea and I'm just gonna do whatever. So I dropped out of school, went to Korea. I was there for maybe like a little over 6 months. And I was training at a company. The rehearsal schedule was like super crazy. Like we would be rehearsing from like 11 a.m. to like midnight. So it would be just like
Wow.
the whole day. Um, it was honestly a really amazing experience for me.
Mm.
Taught me a lot of discipline, and it's something that I really enjoyed. So I think in general, like anything entertainment related, I was always just really into. But it was like the moment of because I'd be learning and training like all the time, right? But
Mhm.
there was just like a moment where and this is when I already had started dancing, so I was like really loving dance. I was like, I want to be so good at it that I want to be the people that are teaching me it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like I was just like, I want to be so good that I want to be the ones making this or teaching this.
Wow.
And I remember like so much of like if I have free time during my training time, I would just be the one choreographing by myself with a little vocabulary that I knew.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and trying to like create my own stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of just like where it started brewing. I remember even my first year at Riverside, I was really all into I was like practicing all the time. Like I just knew that for some reason my energy was just like all into it. And I would wonder like how come no one else wants to practice with me? Like how come no one else is putting
Mm.
the same amount of time, you know? If there's free workshops or classes out there, I would like go in a heartbeat, things like that. So I think all of that just accumulated into, I think I want to pursue this. And I remember telling myself, like, even before I was even equipped to even say it, I remember telling myself, like, I'm going to do this one day. And I have no idea how, but I'm going to do it one day. So yeah,
Man,
so that's how it
you're
started.
different. You're different.
I'm built different.
No, but I mean in the best way possible. Like
Yeah.
I mean as you're talking, honestly, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I wonder
Mhm,
what this passion and drive feel
mhm,
like," right? Like
mhm,
cuz I feel like, for me, I mean, I guess it's not completely true, but um I don't love anything really like as much as you're
that much.
talking about dance. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? Like
I know what
there
you
are
mean.
things that I like, but it's rare when you find someone I feel like they're completely sold out.
Yeah.
And but that's why you're here today. That's why I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So you come back from Korea and then what?
Yeah, and then, I just started training, back at my first studio that I started going to in high
Okay.
school called Edge. Found a mentor there and just kind of dived right in. Like, I got, my first professional gig, I think around maybe, like, 20 years
Mhm.
old-ish.
Mhm.
So I was performing like I was performing and doing gigs and stuff like that, and I really just started getting opportunities that made me feel like this is possible.
Mm.
Um, and then I joined my crew GRV. I think in 2014. So it's been actually quite a while since I'm still on the team.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Um, joined the team, which it was basically competition based. It wasn't anything like super professional, but I've been on the team for about 8 years. So throughout that time, I've had the opportunity to choreograph for them, which means like putting my own piece on stage with the team.
Mhm.
And that I think really catapulted like this process of me really becoming my own choreographer, because
Mm.
there's a lot of people who dance but they are not really interested in being their own choreographer.
Mhm, mhm.
So that was kind of its own journey of me wanting to teach my own classes and wanting to choreograph for artists, things like that. And I think, to be honest, like the process was a bit rough and long, obviously, because anything regarding freelance, it's like you have to build it, you
Mhm,
know?
mhm.
So that took a lot of work and a lot of time. But yeah, the opportunity, I just kept taking opportunity by opportunity. And here we are.
That's so crazy. Okay, so
Yeah.
as a choreographer,
Mhm.
like, you said that I mean, in my head, right? I'm like, man, the amount of time and energy that you put into dance to get where you
Yeah.
are today, I'm sure is like I can't even imagine it, wrap my head around it. The
Yeah.
amount of hours that are put in. As a choreographer though, like how does one say you're like, okay, I'm a dancer and I want to be a choreographer,
Mhm.
but choreographing things
Mhm.
some come easier to some, I think, than
Mhm.
others.
For
I
sure.
take this from like my experience as a figure skater.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um like how does one hone their like skill
Their
in
skill.
choreographing?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a it depends on the person, obviously, and it's such a vast like array of resources, I guess. But I think the first thing to do is like to be a really good student first, because usually how people end up choreographing is they're taking a lot of classes from all of these different choreographers who offer different styles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as it's like you're collecting vocabulary like into
Mm-hmm.
your vault, right? And so as you're collecting vocabulary, it's you're choosing things that you like, that you don't like. You're choosing like stylistic mannerisms, things like that. And you're kind of changing it to become your own. So a lot of times it's funny, like if if someone starts choreographing and they're really inspired by somebody,
Mm-hmm.
um, inevitably they're gonna start choreographing like exactly like them. It's kind of like the hump that you have to get over, to be
I
honest. Like
see.
I've
I
done it,
see.
like so many of my peers have done it. It's just natural because you're just following who you're admiring. And then it's that journey of like kind of tweaking it, modifying it, and like doing it so many times that
Mm,
it becomes natural to
I
you.
see. I
And
see.
so it's like its own journey of finding your own movement too. But that's usually how the process kind of starts. Honing it, I would say it would just have to do with doing it a lot.
Mm.
So there is like this stigma of um, like I feel like if I do it too much, my creativity will run out. So people kind of try to, it's
Do
almost
it
like a
less.
fear of burn. Yeah, like it's like a fear of burning out, I guess.
I see.
So people are like, oh, I'm just gonna do it only when I'm like feeling really inspired.
Mm.
But I think from experience and witnessing a lot of people's like journeys, I think it has more to do with getting the ball rolling.
Mm.
So the more you choreograph, the more output. You're really like oiling your gears, I guess you could say. So I think it's a lot easier when you're like in the mode of choreographing and doing it a lot, that it's just gonna come easier. So that's what I always recommend to people trying to choreograph.
Okay, okay, that makes
Mhm.
sense. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying about the stigma too, but I feel like just like exercising, you have to exercise this
Yeah,
muscle more in
exactly,
order to get
exactly.
better at it. That makes okay. You make it sound so easy, but it's not. That um, okay, so I was thinking about you in preparing this interview
Mhm, mhm.
over the weekend, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but my husband and I were in church ministry.
Mhm, mhm.
We work with a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And we had a student over the weekend kind of come to us a little bit crushed and defeated
Mm,
because her mom discouraged her from getting into something in the creative arts, okay,
mm.
like in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
creative area. And I thought of you
Yeah,
because, well, okay, first of all, it wasn't dance, it was just something else. But dance culture in where I live is like, doesn't even compare, right? Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like there is no culture of this dance community in
Yeah,
Georgia,
yeah,
like there is in Orange County in California and the West Coast. And so
yeah.
I feel like, there is already a culture set where people kind of move into, and if like you're outside of that culture, you have no clue what's
Yeah,
possible as far as
sure.
dance goes. So my question is, right,
Mhm.
like, was this an easy move for you, even like for your parents?
Yeah.
Like I mean, your sister dances too,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. She
yeah.
does.
Do you have
Um,
any comments on that area?
y- I do. I'm gonna say, honestly, I was very, very blessed,
Mm,
and privileged to have parents that were just really supportive.
mm.
When I told my mom I was gonna drop out of school, she was like, "Okay, do it." When I told her I was gonna move to Korea, she was like, "Okay, do it."
Oh, that's so
She even
awesome.
came with me the first time
I
just to
love
like make
it.
sure I
It's
get
so great.
situated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, like I personally was just really blessed to have parents like that, which made the journey, I would say, a lot easier than somebody who have parents who are just like a lot more concerned
Mhm,
for that journey. If I were to give advice though, because I know so many, it's more common to have that story
mhm,
of the person in your ministry than mine, especially having Asian American parents, who especially are Gen 1, um, I've come to realize that there is a need to kind of become independent from the story of Gen 1 parents while
mm,
still honoring what their story was. Obviously, their story has so much to do with our history of having to like work so hard to make a living. And so at the end of the day, like them like not supporting isn't because they don't love us, it's because they're worried, right? And so it's that hump again of just like really diving into what I know I could do, but with the balance of like being completely responsible and taking ownership of that. Obviously, if you're lacking discipline and you're not actually doing the steps that require success, maybe you have to rethink that. But if you are really serious about it, to take that step, because I've learned that like once you take um, a couple of years to really build something,
mhm.
the moment you're able to show your parents one thing, maybe it could come in the form of a check, to be honest. Like, but even if it's, or even like, I don't know, putting something on the TV, like most of the time, all the stories I've heard, the parents are like, oh wow, like they start becoming supportive like a little bit at a time. Um, it's only when you have something to show
Yes.
that they're a little bit more comfortable, like understanding that that is the process that you took. So it like that time I feel like will come
Mm,
for most people.
mm.
But it's just the fear of doing it that doesn't really get there. So I would just say like it is like that difficult like the initiation, but I feel like we do have to go through the process.
Yeah, no, I think that's really sound advice, and I like what you said about it's the fear of, I mean, honestly, you just don't know it's faith, right? Like, you
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No one does, and
Yeah.
so but yeah, getting over that fear of disappointing or
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, or um and it's only for a moment, I feel like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I loved how you said just the important part is putting in the work, right? Like
Yeah.
navigating and showing that you are disciplined in getting where you want to be, which clearly, right now as you tell your journey and your story, you have been doing that, and
Mhm.
which has, you know, the fruition of it has been like what, your own business and
Yeah.
so many other things. Okay, pretend I know nothing, which I do. I know
Yeah.
nothing, zero things. Uh,
Yeah.
how does one make money as a dancer?
Okay. Honestly, you start off by just it's like freelance, like I said, like a thousand times in the
Yeah, yeah,
podcast
yeah.
already. Um, but it's really seeking out opportunities through either, okay, so there's so many avenues actually.
Okay.
So either you can join an agency
Oh.
and get signed as a dancer. And so what the agency will do is they'll tell you, hey, go audition for these things, and they'll
Mm,
plug you into all of these different jobs. And then if so it's like audition life, right? Same as an actor, maybe. So there's that route, which we call the industry. I haven't ventured into that quite yet, just because I feel like I'm doing so much in what I'm doing right now. But
okay.
I feel like that's something I would love to do in the future. And then honestly, a lot of it is going to take classes from people and like being mentored under certain choreographers who will oftentimes like book the same dancers because they know that they're capable. So a
Gotcha.
lot of my mentors who I've trained under, they would hire me for a lot of their jobs. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many. Even through my crew GRV, now that we've really built our organization to be a lot more professional rather than just like competing in competitions, I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of gigs come through my crew as well. So
Mm,
the avenues are kind of endless, especially for choreographers too. Teaching classes are kind of a huge part of that because I feel like a lot of the gigs that I get hired for as a choreographer is just through me teaching, to be honest. Like I'll be traveling to different countries and stuff because they'll see that I'm teaching somewhere else and then they'll book me for that too. So that's kind of like a very different job than just being a dancer, but both are equally respectable
mm.
and the avenues are endless, is all I
Wow, I
can
had
say.
no I mean, I guess I kinda had a clue, but the
Yeah,
fact that you say the avenues are endless,
yeah,
I didn't know that was even a saying, like,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
for me, I just know what's in front of me.
Yeah,
But I think
sure.
even more so, it seems as though, the exposure through social media too nowadays is like
Yeah,
really is endless.
yeah,
That's amazing.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so like I gotta know, how did you and your sister decide, let's open a dance studio? What does that even look like logistically? I'm like, that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Like, like even
Yeah.
just starting a business, like
Yeah.
is is a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah. It is a lot of work. Um, so my story is kind of funny because, me and my sister, her name's Deanie. So we've talked about obviously our goal of owning a dance studio, but that was like in our heads, like when we get retired, like when we
Mm.
retire and when we're like a lot older and we're like not dancing anymore. And so it felt like a very far off thing. It wasn't even something we were planning for. And actually my mom had a home decoration shop in LA already. So she had a space and she was like, oh, I kind of want to like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I think I might want to sell my space. And then we were like, wait, no, that's like such a waste for you to sell the space. Like, what else can we do and what can we use it for?
Mm.
And so we're like, what do we know how to do? And we're like, why don't we just open a dance studio?
Oh my goodness.
So I will say it was a very spontaneous, really not thought out like situation. And so literally within the next 2 weeks of verbalizing that with each other, we were like, let's do it. So we put floors, put mirrors, and like kind of renovated the space all in a matter of weeks. Um, and then came this realization of, oh wait, this is actually a lot of work. Like we can't just do it. Like we actually have to learn from scratch. So Deanie and I really went from like step one, like step zero really, and like really had to learn one thing at a time. Um, so it's a small business. So like us being small like business owners, we kind of have to know how to do everything because we don't
Mm.
have obviously the funds to hire different people for every area. So like social media or like admin, like finances, like we all have to do it ourselves. Honestly, Deanie is my lifesaver because she is the finances girl. So she's a dancer, but she also is like she does finance as well. And so I don't even know how she balances both, but um, her doing all the finance stuff in the back end, I think that was really helpful because I wouldn't have known how to do that.
Yeah, no,
So we
I'm in
kind
the
of have
same
to
boat.
like,
I would've
yeah, right. It's different. I'm like, okay, tell me what to do, I'll do it. Um, so even like social media and stuff, like I had to like learn from scratch, like how to make flyers, stuff like that.
Mm.
So it kind of just like was a long process of us making mistakes, learning how to figure it out. trying new things, but also being like really clear about what our core values are, and just trying to build a community that we really love.
Mm.
And I think, and COVID, let me just tell you, was so rough. Like, so we were open from 2019
Oh
to 2020.
gosh.
COVID happened a year in. It was like a month after our 1 year anniversary. COVID happened.
Oh my
We
goodness.
had to close, yeah, and it was actually the worst for dance studios because we weren't categorized under like enough things. It's crazy, yeah. So
No.
for maybe like retail or fitness gyms, like they were faster to open up. Like the city
Yeah.
would make rules that allowed them to open up faster. But for us, we were closed for like a solid amount of time.
Oh
For
no.
us, it was 2 years, just because we wanted to like really ensure safety. We thought we were going to close down, to be honest. And then basically, me and Dini just like worked our asses off really to like keep it
Yeah.
afloat. And so we reopened in 2021, and then we've been open for a little over a year since then. And honestly, it's been like such an amazing journey. Like the students doing super well. I see the community really thriving. And so I feel like it's really picking up now.
Oh man, how
Yeah.
encouraging. That's awesome. No, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine during COVID, like even just the panic that you feel, like, and the
Yeah.
sadness of like all the work that was put in. Oh, how
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that things are going well. So like your studio right now, so a dance studio consists of what? Like workshop, like dance
Hmm.
classes,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah. So we
like
hold, sorry. Yeah. So we hold dance classes every day, from Monday to Saturday,
uh-huh.
usually at nighttime. And it's just like a variety of styles. And then we obviously have like private lessons, stuff like that. So it's like also a wide variety of things under the business. But yeah, that's like the main thing, is providing classes for the
Do you feel
community.
like you're just like living your life, like living your dream?
You know, I mean, there's times where I wake up, because I will say, like ministry has been such a big part of my life too. So like God has been a part of like every step of the way. Like
Mm,
me being in Korea, me being at UCR, like me just like
yeah.
working, like there were times where I would just side hustle like crazy. Speaking of, I never really mentioned that, but like
Uh-huh.
in the beginning when I moved back and I was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna pursue this as a career, actually side hustles were like my best friend, because that was before I had built anything.
Yeah.
So I really had to work financially to get there.
Mm.
There were times where I took like 9 to 5s and like, and I would just like be crying on my drive to like
Oh
work and stuff.
gosh.
So that was like, just like part of the process of learning like how to maintain whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah.
But God was just like in every step of the way possible,
Mm.
Um, I I don't even remember what the question was. I was just I was just like
Oh my gosh, I
so
don't
into my
remember
story.
either.
But
I was so
all
into it
to
just
say,
now. I don't.
yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh, what did I ask?
you said, like, do you feel like you're living your life now?
Oh yes,
So,
sorry, I'm a
so
terrible
anyway, I
host.
had
I'm
to, yeah, no,
horrible.
no, because I went like a whole different tangent, but I had to like preface it by mentioning that it was like a whole process of just
Yes.
like living in it and just like
Yes.
doing what I can. So to be honest, like I was in that space for until up until recently of just doing what I can and just like trying to keep up, especially with all the busyness that everything I do requires. I think now I can, not that I'm enjoying where I'm at, like in terms of like I don't feel like I've reached success or anything like that. Um, which is a whole nother can of worms that I won't open up. But
That's for
I think
another
but I think,
episode
yeah,
two.
yeah, but I that's so funny. But I think I am in a space of gratitude
Mm,
where I can like recognize how far I have come,
yes.
and then like positively like really work towards further growth. So
Hmm.
I'm in that like really sweet spot, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not like overly stressed because of busyness. I'm able to really like enjoy and like really thank God for everything that I've built,
Yeah.
but then also be like, okay, I'm so far from where I want to be. Let me continue
Yeah.
to
Oh,
work
so
for it.
like, do you know where you want to be?
um, I think, of course, like just as a dancer choreographer, I think as my own creative,
Hmm.
I would love to just like further my career in those areas.
Hmm.
As I mentioned before, like maybe doing more industry related jobs.
Yeah.
Like dancing for a big time artist would be so awesome. I just never really like was interested in that area, so I never thought to venture into it, but like that would
Mhm.
be so awesome. Or even just like traveling more in order to teach my own workshops. Like I've already started to travel a lot, but I would love to do that more.
Yeah.
So I think there's all of those like kind of outward goals. Um, but inwardly, obviously, like there is a never ending cycle as a creative to just want to be better at your craft. So,
Yeah.
there's times I'll just look at my year, like 2020, so it's 2023. So, obviously I had a time of just reflecting on 2022. And there were so many outward opportunities that I am so thankful for and like was life changing. But inwardly, I was like, man, I didn't create as much as I really wanted
I
to,
see.
or even like the quality of what I wanted to.
Yeah.
So this year, I think like more inward goals would be like to just create a lot more, and like to just create better stuff, like better
Mm.
quality of stuff. So yeah, just a lot
Oh
of
man,
things,
it's
but
like interesting for me to hear you say those things just because watching from the outside, I'm like, what do you mean? It was
yeah,
great.
yeah,
22
yeah,
was great. 2022 was
yeah,
great for
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but that's awesome. So, um, if I could kind of ask you about you as a creative, as a
Hmm.
dancer, you start to choreograph, guys. Okay, Eileen Kim on Instagram. Please go like follow her right now. It's just really, I mean, for me, I'm like, um, yes, you're a good dancer, but the reason I enjoy your dancing so much is
Hmm.
um everything you're saying just confirms like how I feel when
Yeah.
I watch you dance. I'm like,
Um,
oh, she really loves her craft a lot and she's not doing it for the work is how I
mm,
feel.
mm, mm, mm.
And I not just I mean a lot of dancers I think feel that way, but
Yeah, yeah.
anyways, how does your creative process start then? Like are you more of like you hear the music and you're like, oh, this is it, or like someone
Mm.
gives you music and you're like you got to just do it, or what does it look like?
So, I guess I'll separate like doing it professionally versus doing it as a hobby.
Okay, yes,
Um,
good, good.
because doing it professionally, there's obviously more times than not that someone will give you a song and they're like choreograph to it. And
Yes.
I have to. I built my skill in a way where I could do it to
Mhm.
anything. Um, but I'll have to like really put in that extra time to like find the inspiration first, But when I'm doing it just because I want to, of course that's a lot easier because I'll just choose music that I'm feeling at that moment.
Mm.
Um, so obviously, I feel like choreographing is cool because I can choose kind of like whatever style I want. So I feel like I do try to venture into diverse styles as much as I can. So sometimes if I'm like in a gloomy, like slow mood, I'll like go for slow songs, and then sometimes when I'm like really energetic, I'm like bumping Ludacris in the
Yeah.
car. Then that's like the vibe I'll go for. But I think it's like allowing the music to kind of move the way I'm feeling, and then taking that as kind of the general vibe of what I want to express.
Mm.
And then I'll jump into choreographing in that way.
And
Yeah.
it just like comes to you?
I think so. I think so. The process is interesting. Like when in the beginning, when you're more of a beginner,
Uh-huh.
you kind of have to just go move by move. Like you literally have to like make one move and then be like, okay, what like makes sense to
Right.
go from here to the next? And then you
Uh-huh.
kind of have to like go through the nitty gritty of like, oh, that feels kind of awkward. Let me like do something else.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like a much slower process.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I still do that sometimes, but I think like as you kind of get more comfortable like choreographing, sometimes it'll be like vocabulary that you just have that just like you already know how to use. Other times it'll be really based on like freestyling. So instead of like stopping and being like, okay, planning out each move, I'll just like move to the music first.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll even film myself freestyling to that song. And then I'll pick out like, oh, these are the moments that I enjoyed and liked. And then I'll kind of start to structure that. So or even like if I did move by move for a little bit and
Uh-huh.
then I got stuck, then I'll freestyle from there. I'll like continue dancing after that move. just so that I can see what my body naturally does.
Wow.
And then I'll go back and like kind of like tweak that too. So it's, I think choreographers use all three. They use move by move. They use their already the vocabulary they have in their vault, and then
Mhm.
they'll freestyle.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a mixture of all three, to be honest.
I would just love to watch you like just do that.
Hey, when you visit
Sorry, not
LA.
to sound like creepy or anything.
No,
I
no, not at all.
just
It's a
love
fun
it.
process for sure.
So fun.
Yeah.
So in your journey, it's weird. It's weird because like most people, I feel like it's a different. My vocabulary is shifting right now because I usually talk to people that have jobs and
Yeah.
careers, and which
Yeah.
this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do feel like for you, this journey is continuous
Hmm, hmm.
and it's always growing. But
Yeah.
with being an entrepreneur and also a dancer, choreographer, all the things, like
Hmm.
what do you feel like is the most challenging part of your job?
Mm. Challenging part. I mean, I would say, well, I mentioned it slightly before, but obviously having maybe not as structured of a schedule as maybe a 9 to 5 would have.
Yeah.
Any artistic career, you kind of have to like set your own schedule
Hmm.
and be disciplined with that. So I think it's a balance, that balance of like, oh, let me like go with the flow and like allow myself to like feel whatever I'm feeling versus like, okay, I need to actually like get work done because no
Mm,
one's gonna give me a deadline.
gotcha.
So for me to like initiate projects or like plan my own stuff out, like I need to be on top of that myself. Um, so that's one hard thing. Another thing would obviously be finances because being a freelancer, I think for me, like now that I've kind of built other areas of my job as being a choreographer, my income is a little more consistent. But
Mhm.
I know for a lot of dancers slash choreographers, like it's just by job, or by gig. So there's months at a time where they'll go with no income at all, and then in 1 month maybe they'll make like three months worth of rent. So I think it's just that inconsistency that you kind of have to learn to embrace and work with. That's, I feel like, really difficult for a lot of people. Um, I mean, inwardly for me personally, I think a constant like obstacle is kind of just getting over my own like criticism.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously, like art is so subjective. Um, but there's times where you're gonna look at it and be like, are people gonna like this?
Right.
Or
Right.
like, or are people gonna show up to class because they want to learn this? Or does this look fun to like, is someone going to watch my video? Like if it's 2 minutes long, are they going to watch the whole thing? Like obviously there's all those like kind of doubts or thoughts,
Hmm.
which I think are very natural. But it's kind of getting past those fears a little bit and just understanding like if I'm truly like feeling good about something, that is the art that I want to present. Therefore, I'm going to express it and like just being a little bit more fearless with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe if I've choreographed something and I'm like, oh, this is not good enough to like film a whole video for it.
Mm.
But like, but then sometimes I'll look at it and be like, well, it was good enough, you know? Like I should have done a bigger project with that.
Mm.
So it's kind of getting over my own doubts and like criticism a little bit, obviously. Um, there's so many more, but I feel like those are like the ones I could think of at the top of my head.
Yeah, no, thank you for your honesty in that last one
Yeah.
too about the inward challenges because I feel like no, that's all of us. I
Yeah.
mean, even
Yeah.
me as a mom every day, I'm like,
Yeah.
if only people knew how embarrassing like I am,
Yeah.
and in the way I discipline my children or get angry at them. And so I appreciate that, just your
Yeah.
transparency in that. Okay, so what do you love the most? I mean, I feel like it would be obvious, but maybe it's not to everyone else. So
What do I love the most about my
yeah.
job?
Dancing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, being able to do it. Well, I think okay, not to be lame, but it is like such a blessing to be able to do what I love as my career. I think it does come with so many struggles too. Okay, actually, let me go back.
Do it,
Let
yes.
me let me connect it. So one of the struggles is like people think, oh, it's just like rainbows in the clouds for you to just be able to do what you love as your job. That's
Mm,
actually honestly not true all the time because for you to go from something you're so passionate about and then for you to have to start working in
Yeah.
that, it changes the dynamic, like it changes the relationship with your
Sure.
art a little bit. So you kind of do have to like sometimes like it does feel like a 9 to 5. Like if me explaining how my day is, like that
Yeah.
schedule oftentimes is a 9 to 5. So I think that is difficult.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, like when people do remind me, like it must be so nice to have done that and to be in a place where you can say that you do what you love. It's rare for people. Like that is very true. So I
Mhm.
think like that concept in itself is obviously something that I love. But I would say traveling is such a joy of mine because it's just like so the concept is, someone from, I don't know, like Spain or like just Germany, like will see your stuff,
Mhm.
and be like, "Hey, can you come teach us?" And then
Oh
they
my
would they would like
gosh.
fly you out. Yeah, they would fly you out and take care of you, and like you'll be teaching your own choreography to these students who I would say it's not even about like me at that point. It's about the students because every time I go travel and teach somewhere, the students are so hungry to learn. But it's because LA is like the hub of dance. So obviously there's so many studios out here, so many resources.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like it's just so easy to like it's accessible, like
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
at your fingertips. But out there, like just in the world, like there's such a lack of resources that when a choreographer comes, like for them, it's like really good training that they're not able to get all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think we just like a lot of LA dancers, like we forget about that. And so we take it for granted, even me sometimes. But it's being able to like connect with people.
Mm.
Just like be in a space where you're just like meeting someone who's like a whole different background from you, just so eager and hungry, and then you're able to like share with them is like that
Yeah.
concept is just so like crazy to me. Um, and the fact that dance has evolved to this extent where we're able to do that more regularly, I think is great. So I think traveling for me is like such a big plus, even though it's tiring, but it's like the reward is so big.
No, I'm sure. And even just
Yeah,
like seeing the fruit of the investment that you've put into, I'm sure is so
yeah,
like
yeah,
awesome to witness.
yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
then last
beautiful.
thing would be because obviously, I mean, I haven't talked about this much, but like teaching is such a passion of mine. And so even like directing my team or teaching a class, when I watch a dancer grow, like let's say I train them and they're like, "Oh, thank you so much. I understand my body this much better now."
Mm,
Like that, and then when you watch them like a month later and they're just better, like that's so rewarding to me. Like
yes.
that's something that I truly, truly enjoy.
No,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I
Yeah.
before I got pregnant, I uh had the opportunity to coach figure skating for a few years,
Okay. That's
and
so cool.
it changed my life. Like
Yeah.
I loved it. And it's just like, you teach these basic concepts
Yeah.
and then it's foundational for whatever it is they do in the future. And I'm sure dance is very similar in that way. And the
Yeah.
vocabulary that you're talking about earlier, right? Teaching them that and then comprehending it and applying it is like so it's like priceless. It's priceless. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, also side note, like that's so cool that you're a figure skater. I think like I know we're talking about me a lot, but like at elementary school, Eileen would think that's like the dream job. Actually, didn't
oh
we
girl,
all
but
want to
I
be a
had
figure
my own
skater?
challenges growing up too. So
I'm sure. I mean, as I'm sure, and it's like so physical too. So I'm sure it's such a difficult thing to perfect. But that's awesome, though.
I mean, on a like, we'd have to talk maybe like not in this setting, but
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a quick side note. Yeah, I mean, yes, it for me, being able to even teach my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, how to skate
Mhm.
and like share this with her,
Yeah,
has been extremely special and such a restorative journey for me.
yeah,
So I'm yeah, it is it's a blessing.
yeah.
It is.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Um, well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I'm
Mm,
so thankful for the time that you've given me to kind of end our time together. I always ask people, do you have any advice? Like whether
mm,
it's somebody that's like, hey, maybe I want to give dance a try
Yeah.
or even like life advice,
Mm.
anything at all?
Oh, wow. There's so many things I could say. Well, one thing about like people who want to get into dance, just because I've been surrounded by non-dancers a lot recently who
Okay.
keep telling me like, this is something I want to try and it looks so fun, but it's scary. I would just say like, just allow yourself to not think of it as like this craft that you have to be really good at, but just like a stress reliever.
Mm,
Because sometimes people step into a beginner class thinking that they have to like do it well by the end of the class. But if you find a really good instructor, like you'll understand that dance is all about like just feeling good and like expressing yourself through music. Like if you're like bobbing your head to a song, like that's dance. So I think just like simplifying it for yourself a little bit and just like approaching it with the aspect of fun, I think will help a lot for people who just want to try it. Um, Another thing, I guess, life advice for me is I think we touched on it earlier, but just this balance of like um, passion and work, like
mm,
really like I think like if you're talented and you're passionate about it, I think it is very important to have
mm,
because that's what's going to kind of propel you to continue to do what you love. However, like that without the work will only last you for so long. So I think it's just being so in love with what you do and with yourself that you don't want to settle for like less.
mm,
That's also going to like instill like this, I guess, this work ethic in you that yeah, I guess that like promises longevity
mm,
and also like is the best part of this career because you're constantly growing. Like I feel like if you at one point if you stop growing, it'll not be fun anymore. And then you're just gonna be in this cycle of trying to do what you've already been doing, but it's just like you're not gonna experience anything new. So I'm not trying to like I don't know, be so talk too much about work ethic in the sense of like, oh, you have to work harder. It's not really about that. It's just like knowing that if you're not pursuing growth at all times, that there's such a limit to creativity. So I think it's that. And then also I guess like for people who are afraid of maybe becoming stuck
mm,
and just like not, I don't know, enjoying what they do, I would say to like allow yourself to take a break. Like obviously, because this is with anything creative, but especially dance, like it's physical. So you can be physically exhausted and you can also be burnt out. And I think that's
mm,
such a normal process as any creative goes through.
mm,
And it's like being so in tune with like knowing that you don't have to be making things or outputting things all the time. So
mm,
like if you're like a painter and like for some reason you're just not feeling it, like you don't have to be painting one canvas like every week or every day. Like there's no I guess yeah, there's no like expectation or like structure to like how many things you have to make. So as a choreographer, like I don't have to create a piece every week. If my body and my emotional state doesn't want that right now, like it's okay to step back
yeah.
and like derive inspiration from different areas of my life
Mhm,
and allow my heart to be filled through something else, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And then when I do create after I allow myself to really like sit and like become full again, like my output will be that much better.
mm,
Even though I made one piece in 6 months rather than 10 pieces in 1 month,
yeah,
like that might be better.
mhm,
So
mhm,
obviously like I've gone through burnout, like a lot of creatives I'm sure have gone through burnout. So it's just like embracing it and then giving yourself the pace and the time to breathe
yeah,
and like take a break and to like
yeah,
really enjoy what you're doing instead of being too pressured about what you're having to do. So
yeah. No, that's really
yes.
good. I think I'm, like, taking in everything you're saying, and even as you're talking, I'm thinking, yes, like, I think for sure, I would even go as far as to say, like, as Asian Americans, there is an
Mhm.
added pressure that culturally we put on ourselves in life.
Of course.
At least I do. And
Mhm.
what you're talking about is like giving yourself some grace and movement and freedom
Mhm.
to just take a beat, and
Yeah.
which I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
good.
And I'm an Enneagram 3, so
Oh, me
anything,
too.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's why we get along. So like anything like that requires me to rest, I'm gonna be like, no,
Yes,
I
yes.
need to be productive. So especially for people like us, we have to remember to take a step back a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh man, Eileen, this has been so much fun. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I hate to put you on the spot, and I
Yeah.
know that you're a busy person, but
Yeah.
if there is somebody that's
Mhm.
listening and is like, man, I really want to know more, and I feel like
Yeah.
Eileen could help me, would you be open to me connecting you with them?
Of course, anytime. I think like because it's I'll prioritize like connecting with people over my busy schedule any day.
Mm.
So I'm definitely open to that anytime.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
again. Hey guys, if you have any questions about this episode or you'd like to be connected with Eileen, please feel free to reach out. You can DM me through social media or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks again, Eileen. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Blair. Thank
Until next
you.
time. Bye.